Welcome to the Animal Training Fundamentals Podcast, where we have fun with practical application and we get mental with the science of behavior. Put them both together and you get results, solutions for your behavior problems, and the tools you need to achieve your training goals. I'm your host, Barbara Heidenreich. Let's talk training. Well, hello. Welcome back to another podcast with me, your host, Barbara Heidenreich from animaltrainingfundamentals.com. I'm super excited to bring to you some zoo professionals who specialize in working with great apes. And I think you're going to really enjoy this one for a bunch of reasons. But here's the one that I really want to share with you. I think what's really special about this podcast is these two zoo professionals, to me, are inspiring because they did something that any zoo professional can do. They participated in an event, they were inspired, and they went on to create a learning experience that's helping zoo professionals everywhere and even around the world. And they're helping animals all around the world. And what I love about it is neither of them came from a facility that's, known for having tons of money or a huge amount of space. They are people who just said, you know what, this is something that needs to be done and we're going to do it. And to me, that is so inspiring. It's that whole, if not me, who's going to do it? And they did it. So I want you to listen to this podcast with that in mind and think about what could you do to make a difference for the animals that you care for and the animals that others care for, and for changing the whole zoo industry, because that's what these two zoo professionals did. So with that in mind, let's get into the podcast. Hey everybody, it's Barbara Heidenreich. I'm back with another great interview for you all. This time we're going to talk about orangutans, great apes, some amazing animals, and I've got two special guests. I have Laura Klutts, who is a gorilla keeper at the Cleveland Metroparks Zoo, and Emily Ellison, who is a primate keeper from Cameron Park Zoo. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
So great to be with you.
It's going to be tough. We got to try not to talk over each other. It's going to be so hard. All right. First of all, I did say we're going to talk about primates, great apes, but that may not have been where you all started. I don't know all your backgrounds. So who wants to go first? Who wants to tell me about your backgrounds? Laura, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'll start. So I've been a keeper for about 15 years. And I did several internships. And oddly enough, my first one was actually working with birds and reptiles. So I did start out there, but quickly through some other positions, I just fell in love with primates. And that's where my specialty really started to fall. So I've worked with orangutans, chimpanzees, and gorillas at 3 different institutions, each one at a different one. And they're just by far my favorite. And I just love them. But I have worked with anything from like kangaroos to tigers to birds, all kinds of different things. But especially the great apes, they have my heart.
And Emily?
After college, I went and did an internship at the Toledo Zoo where I was a primate and small mammal intern and fell in love with orangutans on day one. Everyone else stole my heart, but orangutans took it a little bit more. And so after that, I started applying to different primate positions and got this one here at Cameron Park Zoo. And so I've been here for 8 years and I work with orangutans, lemurs, and gibbons here. And it's amazing and so much fun.
Okay, I do have to ask the question because probably every person who works with great apes asks this. So why orangutans for you first, Emily? Why are they so special to you?
Their personalities, just when they look into your heart or into your eyes, they just look deep into your heart and into your soul. And then every orangutan I've ever been around is completely unique and different. And I love that about them. I love that they have their own personalities and they're so smart. Some a little bit mischievous, some just really curious, and it makes it really fun to work with them.
And Laura, I don't know if orangutans are your favorite, but do you have a preference in the great ape family?
I would say I am surprised how much I've fallen in love with gorillas over the last year. But it's really funny because I had never worked with gorillas before Cleveland Metroparks. And orangutans were definitely a huge part of my heart. And the gorillas are definitely squeezing their way in there. But I actually became a zookeeper because I fell in love with a gorilla when I was 4 at the Brookfield Zoo. So it's very ironic that that's where I am now working with them.
Yeah, because everyone who has worked with great apes will tell you that they're all very different, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they're very different.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. And I definitely fluctuate. I think it depends on what I'm working with at the time. But yeah, I mean, there definitely are some individual gorillas specifically that I just go, oh, that individual, yeah, where they just like, oh, they steal your heart. But definitely after all that work at Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation, there's so many different individual orangutans that, as you were saying, Emily, you're just like, ooh, because they're different in the sense that they do like to look right at you. Right straight in your eyes compared to some other great apes. And you're just like, oh, that one's really looking at me and thinking, and oh my, and you just feel like, oh, I really love you. So one of the things that I wanted to speak with you both about really starts with the Great Ape Heart Project. Can you guys tell me a little bit about that?
So the Great Ape Heart Project is an organization that we have partnered with our cardio workshops, as well as a lot of other facilities have worked with them. And they're an organization based out of Zoo Atlanta that helps compile information about cardiovascular disease, since that is the number one cause of death in great apes in managed care. And they help really get that information out to multiple individuals and are a good central resource.
And you mentioned this workshop. What is this workshop you speak of?
So at Cameron Park Zoo, we host a free one-day workshop, our Great Ape Cardiac Health Workshop, where we talk about different training techniques and help troubleshoot and do demonstrations with our orangutans with those trained behaviors.
And what are those behaviors? What are some of the behaviors that people are working on with great apes in managed care that are specific to cardiac care?
So it can be voluntary shoulder injections, heart Doppler, voluntary non-anesthetized, blood draw, echocardiograms, EKG, and blood pressure of the finger and the arm.
Very cool.
So it's really funny. If we want to talk about how the workshop started just a little bit. So Emily and I were lucky enough through Cameron Park Zoo and other institutions that I worked at previously to attend the Orangutan SSP cardio workshop, or the Orangutan SSP husbandry workshop. And so that happens annually. And the one year that we went to the Houston workshop, we were actually presenting on infant care basically at the time. And we were talking to another individual, Lynn Yakubinish. She's at Zoo Atlanta, and she was the only one doing blood pressure with one of their orangutan Shantech there at the time. So these workshops, going in person and being able to talk to people and to network and to be like, hey, what are, like I heard you talk about this. Can you explain that to me? And then figuring out that that's something Emily and I could do back at Cameron Park Zoo. So we took that information. I was actually visiting one of my friends at Zoo Atlanta later in the year, and we were able to see their setup and see everything and what you kind of like, how they got started, what you needed, basically everything while you're prepping to train any kind of behavior. So when I went back to Cameron Park, and Emily and I started working on blood pressure there. And so it was really like we were the only two institutions kind of working on this. So we wanted to make sure that we were standardizing and doing the same thing because, why would we reinvent the wheel? We're trying to help our individuals, but the species as a whole, so that other people could replicate this. So we actually invited Lynn out to Cameron Park, like after we got some success, and Emily was also working on a way to get our females' blood pressure because that had never been done. So it was pretty typically just male apes, because it did start in the gorilla world, where it was more common for them to be looking at blood pressure. And then we said, what about orangutans? And so when Lynn came, we were like, we should take advantage while she's here. So our curators put it over the Red Apes listserv if anybody just maybe was in the area or Texas Zoo people wanted to come. And we actually had such a response. We had, I think, 19 participants from like 11 different facilities across the country that were so interested. And we were like, wow, okay, come on. Like we're going to be talking about this stuff. Like you guys might as well benefit too. Like you can kind of see where we're at and what we're working on and what Lynn says. And so that's really how the cardio workshop kind of started. And then it was just, we didn't charge anybody. We got everything sponsored through the Zoo Society at Cameron Park. And like, it was just a 1-day thing. We had us, Nancy Lung, that was also part of the, she was on the Great Ape Project board at the time. And then she was also the SSP Orangutan vet advisor, one of them at the time. So it was a great asset. She was right at Fort Worth Zoo. So she could just pop on down to Waco and talk a little bit about that aspect too. And then from there, Marietta, who is the kind of project coordinator for the Great Ape Project, she decided that it would be such a great asset for all species of apes. And so that's when we started branching out. And we actually, I think the next year, I think it was, Emily, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the next year or the third year that we brought in speakers that represented each of the different apes.
The third year. So the next year we had Lynn come back to be a speaker. And then it was the third year we had someone with chimpanzees, and then Bob Corman, he was attending our workshop, and so he stepped up and he talked about the blood pressure project for fingers with bonobos. And so that really helped kickstart it, because we were working on it in Cameron Park, but he had already been previously working on it. So kind of got that help in those troubleshooting tips while he was there, which was really cool. And then from there, we've now gotten a gorilla representative that comes to the workshops too.
And I remember one time when I was visiting you all, you were also talking about you have health experts from the human field also come in and give you some tips as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. So for a lot of different procedures that we have throughout the zoo, we'll actually have some specialists, human specialists come on in for it. And so we've talked to a few different cardiologists and individuals in our community have taken a look at things. Even when we've done an anesthetized procedure, we've had some advice given to us.
As far as the help from the human world, at Cameron Park, we were lucky enough to utilize a local hospital. And one of the echo sonographers, she specializes in pediatric echosonography. And they also said that pediatric sonography is a little bit harder to get the scans and the images that you need. So they're really good at working with the apes and getting that detail that we need. And so she actually would come once a week and help us with our echo scanning. And the best thing ever, I think, because at Cameron Park, we hold the probe. Some institutions, the tech or the vet has to hold the probe. But at Cleveland as well, our vets have us hold the probe. And it's, you can't look at the screen. You're focused on the ape and the behavior and the criteria. And so we actually went to the hospital. And she had a scan on, it was actually her husband volunteered. And we could look at the screen and look at how much we were moving the probe. And it was a big aha moment. So we incorporated that into the very first workshop. So the participants actually get a little individualized one-on-one time, and they'll hold the probe. And we'll have a volunteer that you can actually put the probe on them. And Donna, who is our the sonographer that helped us throughout the previous years, she would kind of talk them through how much you need to move, what angle brings in what view. And yeah, we don't necessarily need to know all those views, but it really helps about being able to look at that screen that one time and that individual, oh yeah, I moved this much or not. So that's incorporated into the workshop as well. And Emily can talk a little bit about this last one. They held that even with COVID restrictions, they were able to do kind of a modified version of that. So people still got that experience.
Yeah. So this last year in 2020, we wanted to still try to help the Great Ape community. And so we hosted a workshop. But we kind of made it our COVID edition. So we decreased the numbers. Generally, we have 20 participants per day. So we took it down to 10 so that we could social distance. We had everything outside. And we actually even installed a blood pressure and blood draw sleeve in our outside day yard. So Muka, our orangutan, he actually was our demonstrator at the whole workshop. And so everyone could stay outside and social distance. And then for it, we usually do that hands-on part that Laura was talking about with the echo. Our veterinarian created this chest cast, and so people could scan and still get an image, but without having that close contact with a person. They were still able to work on that scanning, which was really cool. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and he used an actual. It was a pig heart in there, so you could still see the chambers and the views.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I wondered about that because I saw that you had done the workshop in October, and I was like, how did they pull that off? That's a great experience.
And selfishly, because I'm no longer at Cameron Park, I still wanted to go and see everybody and kind of see support my previous coworkers and still putting on the workshop. So I actually got to go, and I was so proud of them, and to see how they modified it. It was just completely fabulous. So they still made it work. So it was great.
And so are there really quite a few differences between the great ape species that you're trying to do these different behaviors with and procedures?
So there is differences in echoes, where the probe placement is specifically put. And there are differences in blood draw. A great example is while we were doing this, we thought lots of gorilla institutions were getting blood. Like it seemed pretty common from us going to orangutan workshops that everybody usually had a sleeve and usually were working on these behaviors. I know there are sleeves at a lot of gorilla institutions, but the Great Ape Heart Project was able to put out a survey, and I think in 2017 or 2018, and they've gotten results back over the last year, and they've been able to analyze it. And there's only 5 or so institutions that reported back that are actually being able to successfully draw blood on gorillas. So, and Cleveland being one of those, they've only had silverbacks up until the last couple of years. And so the challenge of even figuring that out on a female, where you think you can find the vein no problem on a silverback, or orangutans, you can feel it, you can see it. And then on gorillas, it is very, very hard. We found out through questions through the cardiac workshop that people were having serious trouble with this. And people were like, oh, I've used this vein finder and it doesn't work. And we've tried this and it doesn't work. And we've tried this and it doesn't work. So things like that, even though the training, we can talk about what the regression steps were or what our different approximations were, what worked, what didn't work. But that is one perfect example of how it varies from ape to ape. But echoes, the training and, gelid version and all that, that's ape wide across the board. So, and then, the blood pressure, there's an institution that has been successful with finger. There's multiple institutions that do arm, tough cuff gorilla blood pressure. There's lots of institutions that have been starting with different EKG things that kind of stemmed off at Cameron Park, they demonstrate the 3-lead EKG, and there's a device called a Cardia Mobile that some participants have been able to bring back and say that, this has really worked. And so it's just been such a great evolution of having all the great ape people be together and to see yes, this is all similar across the board. However, there are different variances.
And now with people starting to collect data, has there been some interesting results that people are getting that's been helpful to this project?
So we are actually working with our blood pressure numbers with a statistician at Baylor University. And so we are looking at each individual because we don't have a lot of institutions that are doing blood pressure completely standardized in the exact same way, which we hope to get to with this workshop that we do. We've just been looking at the ones that Metroparks do. And so some of it, we're trying to compare finger versus arm to see if there's a more effective method. And then also looking at trends over time. So it's a great diagnostic tool that our vet can actually use to see if our guys develop cardiac disease. And so that way, those trends over time can kind of give an indication that we should look further or deeper. But unfortunately, we can't say, even with our individuals, that this one is this number and this one is another number. We're just right now comparing those trends. And so hopefully we can get to a point where we can work with zoos where we can come up with girls from this range are this and boys are this. But I think that's where the standardizing and what sleeve we're using, how we're using it, all is going to really play a huge important factor.
Then to also add to that, that's why it's so great that you can submit your data to the Great Ape Heart Project. So instead of the workshop is really for, I would say, like husbandry techniques and, keepers that, want to do some kind of cardio program with their apes. It's kind of like introducing you to what is available for all your tools for what you could put into a cardio program. And it's like, like if you have a male that is diagnosed with heart disease, well, then maybe your vet thinks that echo is something to focus on. If you have something else going on that is unsure, maybe a blood test is better. So voluntary blood draw is better. So there's no clear cut path. It's just like a big, like, here's kind of what everybody's doing. This is what is specifically can be demoed at Cameron Park Zoo. And then they also even give other information about like some other contacts of who is actually working with the Cardia Mobile, what institutions have come and improved like a sleeve kind of design, like things like that. So, it's just a lot of good information that can be focused on. Whereas any kind of data that goes to the Great Ape Heart Project, they have professionals that can look at that and analyze that as well on a higher level versus like an institutional level.
Yeah, they also will get echo readings and send those out, and they can help zoos have those read. And then that really aids the vets who have so many different species to work on.
Right. It's just a little bit step above of what, like we're looking at what we can do for the apes under our managed care. Through 5 workshops, Cameron Park Zoo has been able to reach and share information with 161 participants from 58 facilities around the world. And those numbers don't include repeat facilities or participants over the years. So I thought that was a pretty proud statistic to be able to say what has been accomplished.
And to tie in with that, I know every single one of us is very passionate about conservation as well. And how do you see the project and workshops like this, how they are helping conservation projects?
We were actually fortunate enough that we had 3 vets from Boss come, and they were able to attend our cardio workshop. And so they were able to take that information back and help directly with the non-releasable orangutans that they have at their facility.
And what is BOSS for those who haven't heard of it before?
Bornean Orangutan Survival Foundation. It's an amazing conservation organization in Borneo that our facility, along with many others, partners with. And so we were able to have them come visit and stay a few days. And we have actually sent 2 of our staff members there as well to kind of help out and lend a hand where they needed it.
Yeah, it's super cool. And we just for our listeners, we were talking before we started recording that Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation is the place that I was fortunate to go visit myself, thanks to Oregon Zoo and the staff members there. We did some work there to help work with those very vets that got to come here to Texas and attend the workshop, and work with them a little bit on working on some training to address some medical training and also some training for just day-to-day care, and also working with some of the young orangutans to help make it more likely that they can stay in forest schools so that they can continue on their journey to being released back into the wild. So very cool. So you already gave us some great examples of how you were able to make the workshop move forward in 2020. And obviously we're super optimistic that things will just get better and better as the year moves on and we get vaccines and all that wonderful stuff. And I'm sure you'll come up with more creative ideas for ways for people to participate. So what are the plans moving forward? Are there going to be more workshops so people like me can attend? I've wanted to attend for years, but it's always at the same time as the Animal Behavior Management Alliance conference. And we need to somehow separate those.
We do not plan that on purpose. We actually do have 2021 planned out. It's going to be October 12th and October 14th.
Writing it down.
So it's a full day filled with all sorts of fun training and great apes and all of that. Here at Cameron Park Zoo in Waco, Texas, it's free. And so we started up a website this year so people can get information. They can send us an email if they have any questions. So the website for the cardio workshop is CameronParkZoo.com/explore/Great Ape Cardiac Health / So that should be able to get participants to it, and they can get a lot of information there. We have hotels listed. We're going to keep it updated with like travel information, and it gives a brief synopsis of what we do at the workshop, as well as this video or this podcast does as well.
Cool. And we'll make sure there's a link to that on the episode webpage. So it's very easy to get there so that people can go and attend. And I'm putting it on my calendar. Maybe I'll get to see y'all there, and I'll be vaccinated anyway, even though we'll be social distance, I'm sure, as well, because we want to keep everybody healthy, including orangutans, most importantly. Yay. Well, what else do we need to share? Is there anything we missed? We're going to take a little break to give you your first secret word, and the secret word is cardio, CARDIO. Secret words are important to remember and submit to show you have listened to this podcast for your professional development. Listening to Animal Training Fundamentals podcasts are important and required for earning certain badges in the online educational program, animaltrainingfundamentals.com. All right, back to the program.
And I think the only other thing that we want to make sure is clear is we've gotten a lot of confusion that it's the Great Ape Heart Projects Workshop. And we're trying to make sure that it is the Cameron Park Zoo Cardiac Health Workshop, but yet we realize the importance of, also bringing in the Great Ape Heart Project because they're the ones compiling all the data. So there's been some confusion, but because this last year, Great Ape Heart Project did submit a presentation, but I don't think it was like truly partnered with them because it was just what the orangutans were doing at Cameron Park. So
good point. And I guess it's a good point that it did start out primarily as orangutan focused, and you've just expanded it to include other great apes when possible. And
it was the Great Ape Heart Project would be like, oh, well, we got this question, or these institutions have reached out about this. Like, this is across the ape species. These issues are not just orangutan focused. And so that's really how it kind of developed into the Ape All-Inclusive Workshop, because even though Cameron Park only houses orangutans, it can be demoed, and the training process behind each behavior that's discussed in detail could be beneficial for any ape species. And we've even had some success with institutions taking it for the lesser apes and have success with gibbons.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then what I love about having it at our facility and our orangutans is that we can actually demonstrate all of these behaviors. So we will do a voluntary blood draw, blood pressure of the finger and arm, echo, and EKG with our orangutans here. And then we're in the process of building an X-ray platform. So hopefully that can be something we can demo in the future, because that would allow for like chest X-rays or leg or arm, depending on how we have them positioned. So we're excited. And I think being able to demonstrate it is really nice because then keepers, rather than seeing it on a presentation or seeing a picture, they can watch the apes do it. And that really has that click a little bit more of, oh, my guy back home can do this too. If I just do X, Y, and Z with my cues and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's really amazing that you've created an outside space to do that as well, so that you can have the social distancing. Because most places, that's something that you would see in the back area, and so having made that transition so that it makes it safe for our current conditions and possible to continue with the workshops. That's amazing.
Yeah, we have 2 ports inside for our blood sleeves, and adding it outside is really nice just for COVID measures. And then I'm excited for the future that this is going to create more possibilities for us to have different training scenarios with our orangutans. So just kind of prepare them for anything. So it's getting them ready for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That flexibility is fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm putting that on my calendar now. Going to try and do what I can to protect that date. No conflicts. Great. Well, this has got me even more excited about it. I've always been excited about it, and it's always been a disappointment that I haven't been able to attend. So, I know your slots are going to fill out fast, so I'm going to have to put my name on the list sooner than later, so that I don't have to fight with other people to get my spot on the list there. You all hear that now? Now, all you people listening to this podcast. You might fill up faster than you planned. You might have to schedule 2. All right, guys. Well, is there anything we missed? Did we cover it all?
I think we did.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys doing this. It's all in the name of sharing information and education and providing great animal welfare and saving these wonderful animals that we care so much about. Here in managed care, doing the best that we can by them, and also out in the wild. So thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Time for your second secret word. And the secret word is gorilla. 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 Hey, do you like this podcast? I certainly hope so. It's free, awesome content about the coolest topics in the world, like animals, training, behavior, science, and the experts in these fields. The good thing about this podcast is the more this information is shared, the more animals benefit. The way you can help get this podcast to more people is by rating and reviewing it. A good review helps get it featured on searches. And guess what? Your good behavior gets noticed around here. We'll randomly pick a winner from all the reviews given to receive a free 1-year membership to the online education program, animaltrainingfundamentals.com. And if you all are super participatory and do a lot of reviews, we will do this as often as 4 times a year. But if we don't get too many, maybe it's just a 2 times a year thing. We'll have to see how it goes. If you're not sure how to give a review, just go to animaltrainingfundamentals.com/podcast and look for the big green button for instructions. If you liked what you heard today, visit animaltrainingfundamentals.com for more quality content on animal training. You'll find courses, community, and extensive video examples from my consulting work around the world. We'd love to have you join our force-free family.